Welcome to the Living Authentically podcast, where we talk about living an authentic and spiritually meaningful life. I'm John Siddique, and it's wonderful to connect with you. This podcast doesn't have any set formula, so you'll get to hear interviews, reflections, talks, and sometimes even just music. But it's all with a heartful basis of supporting and inspiring you to live from the highest within yourself. If you wish to know more about our work, head over to www.authenticliving.live. Hi there, I'm John. In this episode, I'll be chatting with my friend Frances Trussell. Frances is a meditation teacher, author, and former broadcast journalist. We talk about everything from her spiritual journey through to the impact of her meditation practice on her family life and lots more. There were some audio issues with this recording, sadly, so there are a few little dropouts here and there, so please forgive us for those. This is a really good chat, so I just had to share it with you. Well, hey Frances, it's really lovely to be here with you.
You too, John. It's been a little while.
It has.
We had a wonderful time, didn't we, when we met up last?
Yeah, the Mindful Living Show.
Absolutely.
Is that how we first met at the Mindful Living Show a few years back?
Yeah, I believe it was. I saw actually that you were speaking, and I'd come across some of your stuff, I think, on Insight Timer before, and I was excited to meet you. And so I just popped you a little email and said, "Oi, let's have a cup of tea or something when we're around, if you will." And there we are.
There you go. And isn't it funny how certain people who sort of seem to stick, it's like, okay, well, I don't see this person much, but I like that person. And then you kind of go around these things, and there you are.
Yeah, resonance,
absolutely. So, well, I wanted to ask you a few things, but before we get into that, maybe for people who listen to this podcast, Living Authentically, I could ask you to introduce yourself a little bit.
Sometimes I'm Frances. I love what I do, because for me, I discovered that wasn't my thoughts. I discovered mindfulness, and it absolutely, it absolutely transformed everything for me, because I was a right stress head, actually, massive stress head, and very depressed and anxious for as long as I could remember.
I just can't imagine that, really. Doesn't seem possible.
Well, it's absolutely true. I was even a kind of shouty, stormy around person for quite a while. All this bubbling anger, just being kind of frustrated and searching really for something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. And so for me, the glaringly obvious, well, it changes everything, doesn't it, when we finally stop and look and see. And so it's my absolute joy in just meeting with people and sharing some of my experience and holding a space for them to hopefully see what's true for them.
What were you doing before you kind of got into teaching?
I was a broadcast journalist. So I trained as a broadcast journalist, and I went down that route for a while, and I ended up moving into the business of media. So from being a broadcast journalist, we train our brain to be focused very much on the negative. What is the most terrible thing happening in the world right now? And then to be able to take that on and to disseminate that.
This is something I've wondered about an awful lot, which is why the worst of things is what we consider to be of such importance. How's that come about, do you think? Because you've worked in that world. I don't know what the answer to it is, but why is the spreading of the worst of us the thing that the media does?
I really don't know the answer to that, and I'm not sure whether anyone does. We kind of blindly can fall into the conventions that have existed previously, and for me, I had just unquestioningly followed what I'd been taught and how I'd been trained and how we're taught to prioritise. And actually, it really, when I started to wake up from just being lost amid that conditioning, it felt very, very stark. This question of why so much on the negative? How is it that we kind of categorise what the bad is? And it just felt so wrong for me to be working in that kind of environment at all. It felt completely at odds with this awakening that I was going through, and I knew that I had to completely step away from that. And that was really hard because I'd invested so much of my sense of identity in being a journalist, in all of this training, all of this education. And there was this real grief around recognising how blinded I'd been by training myself to think in a certain way. And real grief for letting go of a big part of who I thought I was.
But that's really interesting.
Yeah, when we recognise who we really are, we do realise, wow, look at what I've been doing to myself, and look at this piece of me that I need to release. And so I had to even just cut myself off from reading any news, watching any television for quite a long time, which felt so alien to me. But actually, after the initial grief, so liberating. I
just wanted to ask you then, because you've kind of gone straight into kind of what I was going to ask you about, which is kind of, because you're already describing your spiritual journey in a way. But I just wanted to kind of wonder if you could kind of say more about kind of the beginnings of your spiritual journey, just kind of what started you seeing life in a different way. What was it? Was it a book? Was it a particular teaching that you came across? Was it the fact that you were in a world that kind of capitalizes on grief and pain, and that something in you kind of began to recognize that you were more than this? I just wonder, And then how did you begin meditating?
So I think it was a combination of all of those things, actually. I think that was a pretty fabulous summary, John. I was just in a mess, really. I was drinking too much, working too much, taking too many drugs, just this constant thing of trying to look for something else that I didn't know what that was. I was trying to escape myself. I was trying to get out of my own head because my own head wasn't a very nice place to be. It was busy and critical, and I spent so much time beating myself up and was really depressed and anxious for such a long time. But there were quite a few pointers along the way. It wasn't one big awakening and whoopee-doo, clean slate, here I am, a new person in a new world. It was much more messy than that. Lots of stopping and starting. And I've always practiced yoga from quite a young age, and I'd had glimmers of something. I'd had those moments at the end of a yoga class where I'd find myself teary, or I'd find myself absolutely high as a kite, and so I knew that there was something in meditation for me, but I, like so many people, had this belief that I couldn't possibly just meditate because my mind is too busy. I'm far too complicated, you know. And actually one day when I was really in the depths of despair, putting on my good act as the fabulous actress that I am, I was queuing in a cafe and at lunchtime, waiting for a sandwich, and there was two guys in front of me, and one was chatting to the other about this book that he had read that had absolutely transformed the way he was viewing everything. And I was there earwigging, and that book was The Power of Now.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. And so I ordered it immediately, and when it arrived, I think I read it in one take, and it really, there were parts of it that really resonated. There were so many parts of it that I just thought, this is woo-woo and weird and rubbish and pain body, and all these resistances kind of shot up within me, and kind of with my very analytical journalist head on, there were lots of things that I wanted to really dispute within it, and yet there was this deeper sense of knowing that came through from that. And so on about second or third reading, I started to really kind of swallow the medicine, and it started to take effect. And then I suppose the question is, well, how do we live this? How do we bring this to life? How do we how do we not just know something, but
how did you make a practice out of that? Because you know, a lot of people will kind of, you know, in yoga we might call this kind of jnana yoga, the kind of coming at things with the intellect, or you read something. But then how did you sort of take what you'd read and then somehow create something practical from that, so that you could unfold that into your life and bring about change?
I started meditating. I started playing around with meditation, and actually there was this real, once I'd got over this initial set of preconceptions that I had about, you know, meditation and not having the right type of mind for it, and actually there was just this real sense of straight away coming home, and this familiarity. There was a remembering that actually this was something, meditating was my most natural state of being, and I knew how to do it. We all know how to do it. We're kind of moving in and out of these meditative states, and actually I had, funnily enough, I was talking to my sister just a while ago about this, because she had reminded me that when we were quite small, when my mum and dad used to be arguing downstairs and she used to be getting upset, I used to take her through a body scan or do some breathing with her, and I'd completely forgotten this. And it must have just been this innate thing that we carry with us. Because I could suddenly remember having done that and knowing that there was this kind of access point to calm there all along. And for me, it really felt, when I began meditating, that I just remembered this long lost way of finding my way back to myself. And finding that thing that I'd been looking for outside of myself all along. It was like this obvious, of course this is here, of course this has always been here. And then I started going off on retreats. I'm sure my husband thought I was a bit running off to join some kind of strange cult, because even just 10 years ago the word mindfulness wasn't that widely used, certainly within the circles that I moved, and people didn't really meditate so much. And I feel so fortunate to find myself, just a short few years later in quite a different land. It's the landscape hopefully is really changing, and people are remembering to meditate.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think that thing that you found in yourself was just yourself?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Who am I?
Who are you?
Who am I?
Because you started by saying that while you were kind of like being sort of broadcast journalist, Frances, that was an identity that you had.
Yeah.
Being a journalist, and so even I always think that the answers in the statement or in the question always. So that's an identity that I had. So you're aware that that's not you.
Yeah.
You're aware that that's a kind of an identity that you're wearing, and something that when I teach, I wish I could kind of hand to people, but you can't, is that the only thing you're going to end up with, because people think they're going to lose so much when they begin meditating, but what you're going to get is your actual self. And so you don't need to do all that other stuff anymore of kind of living through things and whatever. So I wanted to ask you, if you had a magic wand or a kind of a fairy stone or something like that, and you could endow one thing to people about a benefit of meditation. For me, it's that. It's if I could say, if you do this, you're going to end up with actually you. What's really you underneath it all, which is the thing that you keep saying all along is what you want to get back to. People keep saying, oh, I just want to be myself. So I wonder what your thing would be. What would you kind of just, if you could transmit it automatically?
I'm relatively fresh back from a Zen retreat, and something that came through and tends to come through quite often so clearly is there's this quality of listening, which when we're so busy talking, either outwardly or inwardly, we just can't hear. And it is like this subtle hum of a happiness that no one can give you, that no one can take away. It is this quality of listening and just being in that quality where everything is okay. Everything is okay. And it's so beautiful and vast and endless, that actually that this quality of listening also brings in to sharp focus how we quickly can take ourselves away from that, how we can make ourselves so small and hard to life and against life. And actually just expanding into that quality of listening takes all of that pressure away. It's that pressure that we put on ourselves that makes us small, that makes us separate, and that makes us frightened and makes us live from this place of fear. And so for me, it's not even discovering, it's just hearing, it's just listening.
Yeah, I call it listening to the silence behind the sound. That's my own little phrase for it.
Yeah.
But you're not listening as in like listening hard. You're just it's like being able to kind of hear the dynamic layers in music or the space between notes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah,
and it avails everything to you.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And actually, as someone who talks a lot, it reminds me that listening is the most important thing I could ever do. Just shut up and listen. Actually, listen to the truth that is already here when we're quiet enough and soft enough to be open to it. it's like this quality, even the action now, as I'm feeling myself talk, it's like the quality of this talking is like contracting around the air that is here. And actually, if we just soften and expand, wow, everything is already here.
It doesn't make for much of a podcast, though, does it, if we just kind of meditate with each other? Kind of like, it's like, well, actually, no, it might be a really interesting video. Hello, we're going to interview each other by sitting in silence. That might be a really good video to do for YouTube or something.
Let's do it.
Let's just do it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's like a whole being listening, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like listening with your whole being, because I think maybe somebody listening to this thinks, because I was very poorly in my 30s, and with kind of depression and kind of some mental health stuff, and I can remember going to this counsellor, and this person had kind of learnt to fake listening, so they leant forward with a really concerned face, but you could see kind of like this kind of mask, this moving mask of kind of, actually, I'm not really here. I'm worried about shopping or whatever this person was kind of thinking about, really. But they'd learned to kind of run through a series of techniques and lean towards you a little bit. And that's not what we're talking about at all, is it?
No, but you can always tell the quality of somebody's attention.
Yeah.
Because it is a quality. At times it is palpable, and we know this. We know if we're speaking to somebody on the phone, even we don't have to see their face. We can instantly. It almost has a flavour to it, a taste. We can sense the quality of their awareness and whether something in the background has caught their attention. It is this palpable thing, and yeah, it's all, everything comes down to this quality of our attention, where we're placing this awareness, and we can really sense that. And so actually it is this thing about having this not very zoomed in awareness, like a straining to hear something, but actually this very expanded, open awareness that actually allows everything to arrive to you and absolutely. In you.
Yeah. It's funny, I was chatting to somebody this morning just around town. I run classes in the town that I live in, and I inherit people from kind of different traditions sometimes, and there's this lovely guy who used to be a follower of Osho, and I was chatting to him, and he comes to my sessions sometimes. He's quite a character, but he was telling me that he was at something recently, and he was talking about meditation. It was like a Christian prayer group he was at. Afterwards, somebody cornered him and said, "Oh, you've got to be really careful with this meditation business, because if you open yourself up like that, the devil can sneak in." And I wouldn't know how to answer that if because it's so not that, you're not opening to yourself to darkness at all. It's that you're opening yourself to
love,
and to life itself. And I would even use the G word, but the spirit.
There's a great quote from Mother Teresa. Somebody had asked her in an interview, when you're talking to God, what are you asking him? And she said, "Oh, I'm not asking him anything. I'm just listening."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, what is God saying?" And she said, "Well, he's not saying anything. He's just listening."
Ah, fantastic. See, that's exactly what you were talking about. That's exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? So I want to just pick up, though. You said you started off. It's really interesting because you started off with Eckhart's Power of Now, and that kind of really opened things up for you. But then you found yourself going towards the kind of the mindfulness side of things, but now and we talked about this when we last met, you've been going further and further into Zen.
Yeah.
And you're from the Rinzai tradition, aren't you? So
yes.
What do you feel is kind of leading you in that direction? Because it's kind of, I never know what to call kind of the power of now stuff. I mean, it kind of has roots in kind of yoga, meditation, Hindu Vedanta, stuff like that. I'm not into kind of breaking things apart, but you kind of, it's kind of almost like a kind of non-spiritual spirituality, isn't it?
Yes.
And kind of doesn't need labels, which is why it's so refreshing, actually, because God is not the name of God, basically, and anything we name is just our name that we give it. So it's not really the isness or the thing itself, but you very clearly went towards kind of like the mindfulness side, and even your book is called, has the word mindfulness in its kind of subtitle. Your book, Not Your Thoughts. Is it the magical power of mindfulness?
It's You Are Not Your Thoughts, the secret magic of mindfulness.
Secret magic of mindfulness. There you go. And you kind of very clearly went in that direction. But now, you're moving towards the Zen and the kind of. Because I trained in Zen, but I'm from the Soto school. But there's no they're the same thing. But and what I always loved about Zen was the goal of living an ordinary life, but knowing you've lived it, knowing you're alive in that moment, and having an ordinary life. And I just wonder what's kind of leading you into the Zen.
Yeah, I've never been one for labels, and actually, I've worked with my Zen master for 6 years now, and I've been really resistant to kind of, giving anything a label, and very much, to define is to confine, and all of these resistances. But actually, I love koan work. I absolutely love working with a spiritual question, and for me, the Zen way of let's really go for it within the Rinzai Zen work that I do. It's about I want enlightenment now, and of course that is a desire, and I recognise that. But I feel so strongly compelled, yet to do the work, to be as present as I can possibly be for this fabulous experience that is life, and to dive into that as wholeheartedly as I can.
How gorgeous.
And for me, that's it's the whole reason I'm here, and I'm not messing about. Actually, I think this is the thing for me. Zen, it's very like let's get down to business. Let's be enlightened now, not in some distant future. And for many people, that's slightly too hardcore. It's too abrasive, and we should kind of sit just outside the gate and gently, if it opens, and it may never open. But no, I'm there banging on the gate, actually.
And you are the gate as well.
There's just been this real kind of accidental falling into Zen, and just falling so in love with some of what's already been laid out. I was always someone who thought I'd be walking my own path, but it turns out that a few people have walked this particular path before, and I'm really enjoying the journey of that right now. Will it be forever? What's forever? What will I feel next year? Who knows?
Yeah, but it's not another identity like being journalist, Frances. It's a map that you're using, isn't it?
It's a map, but you've got to be careful of putting another hat on that you haven't noticed, or I have a lot of stuff coming up in my meditations at the moment around this whole idea of personhood, and it's almost like how I'm putting this hoodie on, and I don't realise that I've kind of it's slipped in front of my eyes slightly. And again, that's something else to be mindful of, because it's easy to fall into the trap of being a spiritual person or a Zen this or and actually that's not who I am either.
No.
But I'm enjoying dancing along this particular path right now. So let's see.
Yeah. Well, also I know you like dancing as well.
Yeah. And
I do.
you, have you still been leaping about in your living room?
I have. I'm a daily dancer, and it's just getting better and better. And in the this little project that I run in schools called Magical Moments, I've got these 2 different school projects I run. One called Magical Moments, one called Being Present, which is a much larger thing, which involves teacher training and all sorts of things. But with the little Magical Moments one, it's kind of this kind of almost like encapsulated period of time, but there's loads of dancing in it. Because I find that it's just a really wonderful way to kind of help children or adults process their emotions.
Yeah.
Because we may not have the names for them, and we still, but just because we haven't got the names for them doesn't mean that they're not there. So so rather than trying to kind of, because we always think we're puzzles to be figured out, and then we try coming at it with kind of untangling the mind, but actually we just need to move through the body and the heart a great deal at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's with that same quality of listening, like your body feels and hears the vibration of that rhythm, and we don't need to have a conversation about it. The body starts moving in communion with what is arising, and it's there. It's that being part of that resonance.
Absolutely. Well, we're on for that. Next time I'm down your way, we'll find a dance class.
Absolutely, a bit of 5 rhythms.
A bit of 5 rhythms is just incredible, isn't it? And you can dance. You know what I think is amazing for kids is, if you're feeling great, you dance feeling great. If you're feeling depressed and lonely, you dance the depression and the loneliness. You dance your feeling, whatever it is, the stuckness, your not knowing, and quite amazingly, it's transformed in seconds.
Yeah.
And there's no thinking involved at all. There's nothing to do with your head. It's just landing in the body. Incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it is all there. And this quality of ecstasy, and I used to be a bit of a clubber, and actually I've been in 5 rhythms groups recently where all of a sudden it's like something opens up, and usually actually from behind a bit of frustration or some anger or whatever, and then suddenly whoosh, there is this ecstasy that arises. And I've probably been more high, completely sober on a Thursday night in a sweaty hall in Vauxhall than I had ever been clubbing, taking goodness knows what.
Absolutely.
So it's all there, ready for us already.
It is. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Well, one last thing. Well, 2 last things I wanted to ask you, actually. So I wanted to talk about, I want to ask you what you're working on at the moment, because I'm just interested in that.
So what am I working on at the moment? I am seeing a lot of individuals. It kind of comes in waves, and I'm teaching a lot of group courses, which I absolutely love. I love the energy of a group class, and they're always, even though some of the time some of the things that we're covering and some of the material is the same, it's always, even after teaching lots and lots and lots of them, it's a completely different experience every time, and I enjoy that so much. I've just started reinvigorating my YouTube channel. I've made a commitment to putting out video every week.
Wow.
Which is, yes, it's quite a commitment, but actually it's what I needed to do, because there's so much that I want to share, and I just want to put it out there. Okay. So regardless of achieving anything, it's a commitment that I'm kind of making with myself to just do that.
I'm so lazy with mine, it's dreadful.
Sorry?
I'm just so lazy with mine, it's dreadful.
But you know what? It's good to work from inspired action rather than pumping stuff out.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes. So with all of my social media, I mean, I'm fairly infrequent with it because unless I'm feeling inspired to post something on Instagram or Facebook, I don't want to just be doing it for the sake of it. So I've really kind of pushed back on that and just said, no, I'm going to go against convention and I'm going to do what feels right for me. With the videos, I just know that actually the thing that's been holding me back from doing them is just all sorts of ego rubbish, like, oh no, why do I look like this? Or I couldn't possibly record one this week because my hair's terrible, or whatever it is. And actually, it's not about that. It's not about me. I need to get out the way and just say what wants to come through.
Absolutely.
And I know that I have so many things that can help people, and actually would have helped me had I had knowledge of them even just a few short years ago, when I was dealing with such terrible anxiety and depression. Now, the things that I can share with people and get them to shift really, really quickly, it would be a crime for me to be keeping those to myself.
Well, if you send me the link for the YouTube, I'll put it underneath, or I'll put it in the description for this podcast. That'd be really nice to share that with people, so they could kind of subscribe to your channel and all that sort of thing, and give you lots of likes and things.
Great. Well, but this is the other thing. I think it's this fear of kind of not getting that approval, which can kind of stop us. And I think for me, just this, what if I put loads of stuff out and people don't like it? Or it's totally ridiculous. It's about learning in a way to just get over myself and do it anyway.
The last thing I wanted to ask you was, and just you did touch on it actually already, but I just wanted kind of just a couple of minutes on this because I know we need to wind up. But we're talking about sort of staying humble, not kind of spiraling off into things too much. And obviously you've got kids and a partner, so I was interested in the idea of meditation and the family, and how you practice. Well, is your family your practice? That's it really, isn't it? Is your family the practice? Is that part of your practice?
The people around us are always our practice.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate. I'm not sure if it's fortunate. My kids are little Zen masters. They really are, because actually, not so much the older one, I hope she doesn't hear this too, because she's 9 now, and all of those thoughts and hang-ups and awareness of what other people might think of you and all this kind of thing is starting to really creep in as a 9-year-old girl living in Surrey. And but my son, he is just so inspiring, because we all get caught up in stuff. We all have work to do and emails to send and things that go wrong technologically and otherwise that challenge us. And actually, he is just this beaming, shining example of what it is to be in the moment. He is constantly in his moment. He has no worries. He's kicking that ball or building that Lego or playing with whatever he's playing with, and he is so truly there. And I feel really grateful to have this constant reminder of what that is like and how possible it is actually for all of us when we just notice, oh, look at what I've picked up. Can I just put that down a second? And can I just be here with what is, whether that is the email or whatever it might be? And so I feel so grateful to have those little lessons around me. My husband had never been into mindfulness and meditation. I think he thought I was kind of going a bit strange when I first got into it. But actually, he came on a course with me probably about 3.5, 4 years ago, only because I'd had an operation and I couldn't carry my meditation cushions into the hall. So he was there dropping them off, and he was like, wow, all these people are coming to see you. They're paying to come and see you. Maybe I should find out what this is about. And so he stayed for that first session, and he really got it. And then thereafter, he's kind of done various courses with me, and that's kind of strange at first. Have you ever done that?
No, we keep. She's come to one or two things, but she likes me to just have my own space when I teach.
Yeah. I mean, it can bring in a different level of. It
brings a different energy as well if your partner's there.
Yeah, but actually it was a learning for me and something to kind of get over. And subsequently, I've had lots of kind of family members and close friends and things, and actually, yeah, something that I've got more used to. But he, and then 2 years ago, he went on a enlightenment intensive with me, just because obviously he could see how incredibly transformative they were for me, how useful they had been for me. And I think he was just intrigued as to see what on earth is all this strange stuff about. And he got it. He got to the heart of his who am I? And that was a real important turning point for our relationship, because actually I hadn't really thought about it before, but on the journey down, we were going to Wales, I suddenly did think, oh my goodness, if he doesn't get it, if he thinks that this is all a load of woo-woo, where does that leave us? It's quite a big thing for a relationship going forward. So we're not divorced yet. This is good.
There you go. Not divorced yet. How's things? Not divorced yet. I think that's a brilliant kind of stopping point. I just want one little thing that you could leave us with, which would be really, really lovely. Maybe just for people listening at home. Could you give us a Zen question?
A Zen question. So I think the key Zen question is always, tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. So who are you, John?
I am this heart with you. All right. Well, thank you, Frances, for talking to us. It's absolutely been gorgeous.
Brilliant. Really lovely to catch up with you.
Fantastic.
We should do this more often anyway. It doesn't have to be a podcast, does it?
No, it doesn't have to be a podcast. We should just do this every now and then. It'd be fantastic, actually. Yeah. Bless you. Thank you so much indeed.
All right. Take care. Much love.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. I hope you really enjoyed that. There are links for Frances's YouTube and website in the description. And if you'd like to know more about my work, head over to www.authenticliving.live, where you can sign up for the newsletter and find out about retreats and classes and all sorts of things. If you'd like to meditate with me, then please join me over on Meditation.Live, where I lead live classes a few times a week, or Insight Timer, where there are streaming meditations available. And finally, if you like the music that opened and is now closing this broadcast, the piece is called Continuum. It's by yours truly and is on Spotify, Tidal, all your usual favourite streaming platforms. It's also on Apple Music and other such places for download. I'll see you next time. Take great care.